Oh, you like the Donkey Kong-like genre as well? Mic is muted.
Oh, god damn it. I said, yeah, the Donkey Kong-like genre is my favorite game, dude. My favorite games. It's all games. Post 1981 or whenever frickin' Donkey Kong came out. It's the first platformer, in case you're wondering. Yeah, no one's co-oping tonight. The only person co-oping is that one guy who's fucking AFK.
Be right back.
Yep. I'm not going anywhere. Just hoping that it eventually fucking connects.
be the summoner?
Yeah, but I don't want to do that. I'm too lazy to do that, dude. No, it's this fucker. That guy is ruining co-op tonight. I need Sage's hair. Oh, you buy it at the inside shop. Whoa. Excuse me. No, you bitch! You scrank! Let go of me! Let go! Spider! No!
My phone's internet is being shit, so I am gonna get off and go to sleep or something since I can't watch the stream right now.
Well, have a good one, man. Sorry. Ow! Crunch!
WTF LOL.
What? You don't like my crunch? No! Go!
You tried to open the door and yes, I fell on the floor.
Yeah, that happens sometimes. When something's on the other side of the door.
Right, of course.
Good chuck, dude. I wish I could chuck like that. Fuck it. Where's my cane? I'm an old man. I need my cane. Yeah. Walk at me. No, you son of a flap. Go throw your combustion in Dark Souls 3, you nerd. Go to Dark Souls 1 and use Black Flame, you nerd. Do Black Flame. That means NG plus, bitches. Don't tell anyone you leveled that up. That's how people feel when I tell them I have 99 vitality in Bloodborne. They're like, don't tell people you leveled that up. You'll give them funny ideas. Like leveling up being a good thing. Get roasted. Roasted.
Welcome home, good hunter. What is it you desire? Very well then.
$60.
Farewell.
Whoa, what was that? It's like it flashed the room behind me. What the hell? I forgot to share it, because I'm an idiot. That's probably why I didn't get any co-op. Maybe. Just maybe. Plus my eyes started like weirdly twitching. So I'm gonna take 5. See if it goes away, because it's really fucking annoying. Like my eyelid is twitching. Maybe it's just dry. I'll see. Sometimes getting water in my eyes burns like a motherfucker. You still here, taters? If you're still here, in another week or so, when Neo 2 comes out, shoot me a message or something. Well, it's less than a week at this point, but you know what I mean. But I think he said he's not going to get it on release. I wonder if Rasan's going to be getting it. He hasn't been by my streams in a while. I mean, I understand why. Sorry, I was just whispering to see how soft the mic could actually pick up stuff. I was trying to listen to it in my earbuds on my computer. I just wanted to see how bad the background noise actually was from my zipper and shit. Excuse me. I can't wait for Neo 2 though. I've been waiting for so long for a game to dump time into. That's new. And not Monster Hunter. Because Monster Hunter, I don't know. I don't really like that game anymore. The past couple times I've tried to play it off stream, not only is it a little bit dead, but most of the people just focus on doing hard stuff, and it's just not that fun for me. Hardly anyone plays the guiding lands normally anymore. Which is fine. It's just, I don't know, Iceborne changed too much for me. I would still probably be putting as much hours in as I did the first 2 years if it wasn't for the fact that they just didn't get it with Iceborne. No one wanted the grappling have to weaken a part of a monster mechanic. No one wanted it. It makes the gameplay cooler from like an outside perspective. I know that because I've shown the game to friends who came over. That was the last time I played it when I was showing it to a friend of mine. But I wasn't saying how much I disliked the game at that point. Because when I'm trying to introduce someone to a game or show someone a game or something like that, I'm not going to talk about negative stuff off the bat normally. Unless it's a big negative of the game. Like whenever I used to recommend people to play Dark Souls 1 on Xbox 360 so I could co-op with people, or try to co-op with people, because of course passwords and shit didn't work, so you kind of just hoped that when you put your summon sign down in an area, another person would see it. But back then I would introduce so many people to that game, and one of the things I would always tell them is the game runs like shit. That's like the main thing, is the game runs like dog shit. And you don't know how many people who, knowing what Dark Souls was and seeing videos of it, heard me say that the game's frame rate was shit, that still played the game anyways. So when developers try to act like just because the frame rate is shit for a game, it can't be popular if it doesn't have some other good thing about it, they're wrong. They're just simply wrong. Because Dark Souls is the best example of proving everything wrong about everything people always used to say about video games. It proved things wrong in both a good manner and proved things wrong in both a bad manner. It proved things wrong in a bad manner because it proved that a bunch of people who can bandwagon jump onto a genre can basically just change the name of that genre. And that's where the title of my stream comes from. It's from people who are like, oh, I don't like Neo that much because although it's a Souls-like, it's too much loot and stuff for me. And it's like, maybe because it's not a Souls-like. Maybe because everything you call a Souls-like already existed in games before it. Like I said, I know it from the perspective of someone who never played a Souls game but played Neo and a bunch of other games that people would consider Souls-likes. And he thinks Dark Souls looks like a cheap game compared to those games. And that's why he never bought or got those games but got Neo. The dude I'm talking about, and I mean, he'd probably hate me saying it because I always used to give him shit for putting it in his name, but because he never played through all the content in the game, but he used to have, I bought a PS4 for Neo in his description of his profile on PS4. He didn't buy it for Bloodborne, he didn't buy it for something, he bought it for Neo. And again, I know many other people who were outside of the Souls community type games that bought Neo because of the type of game that it is. And it's not because it's the type of game that everyone keeps saying it is, which is a Souls-like, which doesn't even exist. That genre does not exist, and people only perpetuate its existence because a developer says they were inspired by that. You don't call Metroid a Mario or Donkey Kong-like because its gameplay was inspired by those, but had different core elements about it, even though it was still a platformer. And that's also, like, most people would probably call things Mario-like, even though Donkey Kong was the first platformer, where you actually go from the left side of the screen to the right side of the screen and then the level ends. Donkey Kong started that, not Mario. The only genre that legitimately deserves its name being called a like or a light is roguelite. And that's because Rogue was actually the first game like it. And really, people only call it that because there's no easy way to describe the type. There's no, like, third-person action game equivalent for games like The Binding of Isaac and stuff like that. So people just call One Life games roguelikes. Or roguelite, if it's only got the you die and reset from the beginning part, but everything else about the game is different. Things like Risk of Rain and shit like that. And to be honest, again, it bothers the absolute fuck out of me that people still perpetuate the idea of Souls-likes, even though so many people in the community have stopped calling them that. There's only certain people in the community which even call Souls-likes anymore. And they're normally the people who try to clickbait you into clicking on their video because they put the term Souls-like in their video. I played these 5 Souls-like games on Steam. because it's actually a genre, even though it has no right being a genre. Because it's not a genre. It's a third-person action game. There were many before it with their own unique core mechanics that were ripped off and put into other games, which were then ripped off and put into Demon Souls, which was then ripped off and put into Dark Souls with a couple unique mechanics. Dark Souls doesn't even have that many unique mechanics in it. Its uniquest mechanic is the Estus Flask. And the Estus Flask is a nonsensical mechanic. The entire way that the flask works in all of the games is different and stupid. There's no single way that any of the games make any sense out of it. In the later Souls games, it's just apparently your character's carrying around the base of an urn, of a flask. He's just carrying around the bottom part of it. And he finds the tiny little pieces of his specific flask and glues them together like knocking over an expensive vase or something. Knocks over a vase and glues all the parts back together over time is how the Estus Flask works in the other games. And then it's like, oh, you burn some ash and it makes it stronger. Oh, you talk to these specific firekeepers and they will turn another firekeeper's soul into a buff for your Estus Flask, by which nothing of that process is explained in the game. It just happens. Because it's just a game mechanic. It doesn't need to be explained. But people who cherish it as like this super unique thing, it's not that unique. Games before it had consumable healing items that restored at checkpoints. It was not the first game that did that. However, it was the first game that did a dynamic, you choose your checkpoint system, in terms of the checkpoint being your everything. And even then, that's only in Dark Souls 1. All the other Souls games don't work that way. They work like Bloodborne works. They have a hub world. They have a basic thing that you use to go through stuff. There is no... Dark Souls 1 is the only exception of the rule, and people talk like all the other games have the same like design choices that DS1 has, when they don't. And it's why a lot of people tout DS1 as being the best Dark Souls game, because it encapsulates the Dark Souls experience the best way, which is just a hardcore third-person action game, which if you're a person who never looks up any of the lore, never gives a shit about anything, you just play through the game. 90% of people who do that do not leave the game with the same opinion as people who looked at all the lore videos, looked at every single thing about the game, because they get this almost heirloom quality cherishment to the game, where they cherish it as being like this artifact and relic that has like this immense power with these super like in-depth deep stories, because you have to connect the dots on everything. Like that hasn't been done before. It's just no one cared about it until Dark Souls. And no one cared about it until Dark Souls because no one was doing that type of channel for many other games that were as up and coming as Dark Souls was, with the whole Twitch and troll PvP videos and funny meme videos that came out of Dark Souls. That I know people who watched those kinds of videos, and that's what got them into Dark Souls. I've already talked about this several times, that showing people that you can PvP and fuck with other people is literally probably what made 30 to 40% of the people who play Dark Souls now even play the games in the first place. And then the other 60 or 50% see the games as PvE co-op. But a lot of those people don't speak their mind on the internet. So the 40% that is the PvPers who started the game through PvPing are the loudest voice in the community. Even though they're a smaller percentage of people, like there's always going to be a smaller percentage of people that PvP versus the entire lifespan of the game of people who just played through the game for the PvE side. Because that's what a lot of people do. because they were initially touted as hard games. And that's why I laugh at the PvP community, because they ruined the actual Souls experience by existing. By there being a PvP system in which you could invade other people and fuck with them, it in turn ruined weapons and mechanics in the game, because the developers had to start developing the entire game around the fact that there was going to be other players. Instead of the Demon Souls mentality where another player was just supposed to be treated as an enemy, regardless of how overpowered or how bullshit they could be. If they had 99 of all grass types because they duped every single thing, that didn't matter. And to be honest, that's bullshit. But Demon Souls and Soulsborne PvP initially was not ever meant to be fair. It's another player. There's a reason why whenever they have an Azurb rating or a rating on games, they always say multiplayer experience may differ, or whatever the hell that they put there as the disclaimer. And they put that there because that's the case. You might load into a game with someone who is a motherfucking god, and you're not going to be able to do anything about it. And in Souls games, especially Demon Souls, that is a huge problem. In DS1 it's even a problem because you can smurf. DS3 you can smurf somewhat by beating a lot of the content with specific items that are really good for beating shit but don't count as your character being above a certain level, like range with both the weapons and your character's level. So you have like the Morian Blade and a bunch of other shit, even though you're only like level 25 and you're invading people in the undead settlement because you don't got anything else to fucking do, you piece of shit. Call me salty if you may. I do not mind the invader system. The thing I do mind though is FromSoft caving and giving invaders advantages. Like being able to heal and do other shit like that. Enemies can't heal. And if an enemy can heal, like a hunter in Bloodborne, they can heal 1, maybe 2 times. That's it. Because they're supposed to be an enemy. It's not supposed to be, oh, someone invades my game, now I gotta play a shitty fighting game for 5 minutes if the guy doesn't insta-kill me with some bullshit setup, and then either squat over your character and then throw a stock dung pie on the top of you. The only thing that's different in Bloodborne is the only thing that you can do to insult someone when you kill them is sarcastically clap. It's the only thing you can do. You can't squat, you can't throw a shit pie down on someone, you can't point down, you can't be a piece of shit. It's like, even though I like Prod, because Prod is a funny dude, Prod is one of those people that just perpetuates this point down, everyone is shittier than me when he's PvPing. And I can't stand that fucking mentality at all. That mentality is just dog shit. Half of those people that you're invading are just trying to play the motherfucking game, dude. No different than if you were playing through a mod and some guy invaded your game as a hacker and fucked with you. No one wants to play against a guy who they're just trying to PvE through the game and, oh, what the fuck? I have to fight a guy that has 1,500 hours of experience in Dark Souls PvP? Wow, great. That's awesome. And of course, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it is just like one of those shitty things that some of those like Souls YouTubers will do, is they'll perpetuate being nice or like respecting certain things about the game, while at the same time being like, I'm pointing down at you because you tried to run away from me when I invaded you. Noob! You're an idiot because you're running away. Why are you being such a bitch? Stop running away. When I invade, that means you drop everything you're trying to do in the game and you bow down to me and I kill you. Idiot. How fucking selfishly egotistical do you have to be think that way about a game that is not only a single-player RPG that people tout as being hard, but is also a game where you have the most toxic invader environment, where it's not even that a lot of the invaders are cool. Most of them are just shitheads that just invade to kill another player, point down or throw a stock dung pie, and act like they're higher than them because they R1 mashed and their R1's connected, and because they got an R1 they got a second R1, and the person's roll got queued, so when he R1'd out you roll caught him with your other R1, which then forced him to take a second R1, and OP's dead because you're using a two-handed weapon. Congratulations. Or you're using a straight sword, and it's just anytime the person gets close, you just R1 or R2 to throw him off, if he's got the parry weapon equipped. And then anytime the R1 connects, guess what that means? You get a guaranteed R1. Because good game design. That's their attempt at trying to make the game more like a fighting game, where it's like you launch the person up in the air and get some guaranteed damage on the person, except for it's not cool. It's just, and waiting to get hit twice, and then you can roll away. Oh, you get hit that one time? No, you're not allowed to roll away, but you get hit that second time. Oh yeah, you can roll, bud. You can roll away from enemies when they hit you once. It's only other players and dumb bullshit like that. Other players and other humanistic enemies that are invaders or anything like that. It's just so garbage. Like I said, I don't hate the invasion system. I just think they gave invaders way too much to actually be able to fight for. Yes, I understand. You're invading against a group of 2 to 3 people most of the time. But on a successful invasion, it's not going to matter that you had those 7 healing items unless you literally spent 10 minutes running backwards through the level, only trying to attack a person whenever they attacked an enemy, and you were using like Sellsword Twin Blades buffed with Dark Moon with like Sacred Oath, and you were just instant deleting people. Ouroboros. If you're doing that, then yeah. But when you're doing, again, when you're doing that, you're just killing shit so fast, most of the time having the healing item isn't even the difference. And to be honest, the game wouldn't even need healing items, like I said, if players just dealt less damage to other players. That'd fix a lot of the problems with PvP immediately, is just giving people artificially more health versus other players. In Bloodborne, they do that. When you're fighting other hunters that are PvE enemies, they take way less visceral damage than everything else in the entire game does. No matter if you have claw mark runes on or anything. And that same exact thing could be applied to players. And it is in Bloodborne. So why don't they just have, you deal 20% less damage to other players in every Souls game? Or 25% less damage to players? Or some shit like that. Or how about, instead of making invaders need healing items, just give invaders 50% increased damage reduction or something like that. Make them take baby damage so they get more opportunities to trade, because that's what they really need. You either trade or you go for the R1 and stun them to death with the L2. Which I don't even remember if that works anymore. So you might, I think it's just you have to L2 to get the full 3 hits in. Because, again, everything in the game should be balanced around PvP. Because that's the only thing that matters. Fuck the entire, like, community that was built up around the whole PvE aspect. Fuck them. We'll just nerf random weapons for no fucking reason. Even though they weren't a problem in PvE, they were only a problem in PvP. And then people just moved over to using a different weapon when you nerfed the good one. Like, it accomplished nothing. Another thing that I've said a million times that you can do to fix Souls PvP is, if a weapon consumes too much stamina in PvP to be fair, just make it so that whenever a weapon hits a player, it consumes 50 to 60% extra stamina. That way the actual stamina cost of the weapon is not affected in PvE, but whenever the hitbox intersects a player, even if it's during a dodge, you lose extra stamina for swinging. And as stupid as that sounds, that's better balancing than making the entire weapon nerfed when the weapon wasn't the problem, it's your fucking PvP system. It's like, it doesn't take a group of geniuses to do it. It's why I laugh whenever companies are like, yeah, we tried to go over to get like some insider knowledge on From Software. Even fucking Konami is more open about their shit than FromSoft. Because I'm sure that if one single person got in there and got to see a day's workflow, we'd understand why almost every single Souls game is unfinished. I can't imagine that they actually spend their full day of hard work doing what they say that they're doing. You can't want to keep a company in such closed doors, in such a mysterious position, just for the sake of doing so. Not when you have literally changed everything. You've literally changed so many people's perspective on games, yet you won't do anything about it. You won't even acknowledge a lot of the people's want to see it. The most you'll do is have your publisher fly people out to a place to not even get to talk directly to you from software, to get to talk to the publishers, which are the reason why you don't get to finish your fucking games. FromSoft. Maybe you could have learned early on in your company's career. Like, I don't know, around the time when Demon's Souls came out and Atlas absolutely fucked you in the ass, you could have learned not to go in on publishers. Maybe you could have learned that, oh, let's try self-publishing our game. Because not as many people are buying CDs anymore, and more people are willing to buy digital copies. And even if we are going to make CDs, it's actually not that hard to get the ability to do that, because many small developers have started self-publishing their own games. Even when it comes to making hard copy versions of them. That's what all developers used to do, for that matter. All developers of like early 90s and late 2000s stuff, like Half-Life, most of that shit was boxed up by the people who developed the game and worked in that company. The only thing they did is they have a commission. You send out, you basically go to a place that does that kind of factory work. You ask for a commission, you have them do X amount, and then you take your stuff and you box it up. That's it. And sometimes they didn't even do that. Sometimes they burned their own stuff. They made their own PlayStation CDs. Or whatever company, or not PlayStation, but like PC CDs and other things like that. But that was way fewer and far between than the method of just commissioning it out and then packaging and sending it out on a per demand basis. But again, even back then, hard copies were not, they were dropping in sales. and more people are going digital, and codes and stuff like that. As much as I hate to say that kind of stuff, because of course valuing physical media is important, there were a lot of games that in 30 to 40 years, probably even less time than that, you're not going to be able to play ever again because they were PS4 exclusive, never put on any other hardware, and the only way to play them was online. So your only way to play it is through an emulator, by which someone has to make their own server base to run stuff through. If the game had scripts and shit like that, it all has to be manually hand scripted. Think World of Warcraft private servers and stuff like that. All that shit had to be manually redone. Because half of what makes World of Warcraft work as a game is all done server side through their like client pipeline. And if that pipeline cannot connect to a server, or if your server does not have this type of scripting data pipeline that constantly feeds the world its environmental information, like, oh, this enemy walks from this point to this point, or this thing triggers when you blow up this thing, or whatever the fuck it is in your MMO. Everything has to be associated with online server data, and that's why you can't simply play an MMO when you don't have an internet connection, because most of the time your PC doesn't even have half of the information the game needs to operate. Your PC just has the textures, the models, all the basic stuff on it. It doesn't have the AI, the enemy scripting, the location data. All this kind of shit is determined by the servers. So if you tried to make your own WoW that you could walk around in, most of the stuff would be unscripted and just be standing there unusable, or just simply unfunctional in its entirety, like raids and instances. I don't know if private servers did it, because I never worked on private servers or used private servers that much, but one thing I do remember a little bit is that original World of Warcraft used 2 separate server groups to run the game. Because this was back when servers and server groups weren't that great. So they split their raid and instance servers from the normal game servers when you were running around in certain parts of the world. And even parts of the world had different servers. Eastern Kingdoms had different servers than Kalimdor. And I'm pretty sure that's still how they do it today. I can't say that with like an iron fist, because I haven't played the game in years. But back when I used to play WoW, that's how it worked. Each area of the game had its own servers. Outland had its own servers, raids had their own servers, everything had its own server group. And whenever you teleported or changed zone in old World of Warcraft, the only thing that you were doing is loading onto a new server. And if I remember correctly, even back in vanilla World of Warcraft, there were people who would troll other people because you could there were I can't even explain words at the moment because I'm so like clusterfucked with nostalgia in my brain just from mentioning original World of Warcraft. But if you never played vanilla World of Warcraft back in the day, because playing World of Warcraft Classic will not simulate this problem because we have new modern servers and stuff like that, but in World of Warcraft Classic, you could only, if I remember right, you could only have one group of people fighting Nefarian at once. If there were multiple raids on a realm trying to fight Nefarian, the realm and instance server would lag out, and you'd be booted out of the instance or raid. Or you'd just lag out and then you'd spawn back in dead. Because normally your group will wipe when that shit starts to happen. Because most of the stuff, especially back then, was already delayed by a half to a full second for most people. Either because they had bad ping, just bad internet like dial-up or early DSL or broadband. And it was just... the fact that it was easier back then to have 5 people stay in a group than it is now, I don't even understand how that is because of how bad internet was back then. But I feel like the worse internet was more stable. I remember having my computer on for like, it was probably like 7 weeks at one time, and I had the game open the entire time. Because, and I've talked about this before, I used Kinect and a bunch of like weird things that I had taped together to, you can see a video of this on YouTube. This was way back in the day where people were posting on forums, like not WoW forums, but other forums about how to make machines that would not make your character go AFK. And I built this machine out of Kinects and taping a bunch of shit together with like, so it was basically a circulating arm, and you'd just basically feed it batteries. You'd plug it into a big battery or whatever your best source of battery was. And whenever you wanted to go to sleep or you wanted to do something, you'd leave your character on with this machine on in either Outeric Valley or in an area that was PvP contested, so you'd get honor points and stuff like that. Just randomly from people killing each other if you were just sitting up in the corner, like glitched out some, or not glitched out, but just in a place where most people aren't going to look for you. Blackrock Depths and stuff like that comes to mind, where there's a couple good hiding spots there where you can just hide your character, and if there's no one looking absolutely everywhere, and you're playing like a night elf or a rogue, you can just go in invisible, or it really doesn't matter if you can go invisible. I had situations where I survived for like 8 hours in Blackrock Depths, hiding in a corner near one of the chains where it kind of folds over. You can go in like this little crack and crouch, and your nameplate only has like one letter that's visible when you're walking through that area. So you're very, very invisible to people that aren't tab targeting, just walking through, just mashing tab. I think I only died a handful of times out of the 20 or 30 times that I would leave my character there. And my character would just be on a jump timer. Then you could set up macros and even an auto clicker if you wanted to go even further. Not botting, just AFK prevention. I didn't use bots or anything like that. I never had anything that was automated outside of AFK prevention. Which technically was not against the rules back then. I've talked about before how I had managed to get to rank 14 for a week back then. I never maintained it because after I got it, I was like, I'm done. I don't need to do it anymore. Plus, I was so young at the time that accomplishing something where I was better than like 98% of the other players in the game at that moment. Really thanks to this older dude who pocket healed me like a maniac. But that was really fun. Well, I don't want to say it was really fun, like every single moment of it was really fun. There were a lot of moments where it's like you're so close to getting to that point, but because there's so many other people doing the same exact thing, if you don't have a good, solid group of people working alongside you, you're just never gonna get there. Especially now in Classic WoW. Classic WoW is nothing compared to Vanilla WoW. And I mean that as in the skill level of the general player. The skill ceiling for old Vanilla WoW was much higher because people knew so much less about the game and people were just less experienced with games like that. So people who were able to learn and repeat and do stuff really well and consistently were regarded as being smart. And that's all I did. And that's part of the reason why I don't like playing PvP games nowadays. Because I spent hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours just to get a high PvP rank in a game that takes it away from you almost instantly because other people are competing in the same vein as you. And to have basically none of it matter later on. Like, if you got rank 14 in Classic Vanilla WoW, the only thing you have is the title to show for it nowadays. Because it's not like you got updated armor or anything like that for being a Grand Marshal later on. No, because they changed the PvP system every single expansion, within seasons, within expansions even sometimes. And so it's just like, you can't, there's no gratification in that anymore. And even in Classic WoW, again, you just have you have groups of insane people that are going around making sure that no independent people who don't also have a group of at least 5 or more people who are willing to back them up, you're never going to get to rank 50, or not rank 15, rank 14. You're never going to get Grand Marshal or High Warlord. Never. I was just lucky to have been that young kid. I wasn't even that old at that time. Because I started playing WoW right after the PvP stuff came out, and I only started trying to get to that probably a year later, and I only got it like 4 or 3 months before Burning Crusade came out. So it was at a time when it wasn't as like cool to have it, I guess, because a lot of the people who were originally rank 14 when that ranking system came into play weren't rank 14 anymore, or had started to stop doing that. And so me as a kid who just, again, happened to have a bunch of people who were willing to help me as a kid because they didn't treat me as a kid, which also led to me being treated like shit a lot of the time, but that was mostly by the people in the guild. The few friends that I had that I would do PvP with were people who were like 16 and 18 years old at the time, when I was like, I think I was either 11 or 12. But I've talked about this before, how I used to have one of those shitty stand-up desktop microphones that plugged in via the like weird plug that used to be on older computers. I think it's a PS2 or whatever plug. And that was my that was my microphone for the longest time. I think I used that microphone for 2 years until I got a new computer, and it didn't work with the new computer because it didn't have the slot on the back of it, because it was modern. It was what the modern standardization of like an I/O became for motherboards and stuff like that. A lot of companies started dropping the PS2 adapters and all that kind of stuff. I shouldn't say adapters, I should say sockets, but whatever. But yeah, I had the shitty desktop microphone, and in order to make it not pop, I had, it was like the kind of cloth that they make fucking stockings out of and stuff like that. And I like had it like it was nylon, there we go. It was like nylon mesh kind of stuff, and I wrapped it in like a super thick ball around the end of the microphone. And put like a ring of tape around it to hold it like tight around it, and that was to prevent the popping, but also to make my voice sound more muffled, because I would talk in like a slightly deeper voice back when I was younger, to make most of those people not assume that I was as young as I was. I never told them I was like crazy old or anything. I was like 11 and told them I was 16 and stuff like that, which helped because I hit puberty at an early age, so my voice was changing, kind of like someone who would have been older than I was. But eventually, when I did get older, I told them. But that was at like, only one of my friends that I had met from vanilla still played all the way up to the end of Burning Crusade. So did my cousin, who was the person that introduced me, and luckily my cousins never ratted me out for being as young as I was, because I was decent at the game. And I never ratted them out either, because my cousin was also really young. But that's just what I did as a younger kid, to try and blend in with people who were much older than me, just because you had to do that kind of stuff if you wanted to get anywhere in that game. You had to be sociable. But it was so hard, because you had to compete back then. When you had to get rank 14, you had to compete with a bunch of people who could play all day, and I wasn't a person who could play most of the day. Obviously, being so young, I had school and stuff like that, but I managed to make it work. Also, sorry, dude. I think my text to voice didn't work or something, because I didn't hear it say yo. Sorry, I was just talking about my experiences with vanilla World of Warcraft when I was a kid. When I was much younger, I should say. Being rank 14 for like a week in vanilla WoW is probably the highlight of any gaming stuff I've ever done. Not in Classic, in original vanilla WoW. Because in Classic, again, I can't stress enough how much you need a group of like 30 people to make sure that you get rank 14 in fucking Classic currently. But in old school vanilla WoW, really it was just if you could get a couple friends who would just sit behind you all the time. Get a nice DPS range caster. Preferably a mage. Preferably a frost mage. Get a resto druid for escapes and heals. And then warrior up front. And you just demolish. And then any other people you add to that trio is just a bonus. That's what we ran. But that's old news stuff. And most people nowadays talk about that kind of shit, and everyone talks about being rank 14, even though I don't think most of the people who talk about being rank 14 were rank 14. Because like I said, you needed people backing you up all the way there. You were not ever doing that by yourself. If there has ever been a person who got to rank 14 in vanilla WoW by themselves, then kudos on them, because that would be insane. To me anyways, just because of how hard it was to maintain honor rank, especially if you had to live an actual life and didn't play for 14 hours a day. I guess that's why it's called rank 14. It's indicative of how many hours you play a day. But that's what making little Kinect robots that make you automatically jump and move forward helps. That's what a lot of people did. So many people farmed honor points back in the day by making some sort of weird feng shui anti-AFK system, even if they just built it into an auto clicker or a macro or some kind of script into their computer to do it. That was a crazy time in gaming. That doesn't really happen much now. There aren't games nowadays where you can insert macros to do multiple commands at once anymore. Even in modern World of Warcraft, you can't do that. You can't make a macro which casts 3 different things in one button. The only reason why you could, and it was actually a functional thing, is you can combine putting 3 buttons into one button, and that button would do something that would activate a cooldown, meaning the second time you pressed it, it's not obviously going to do the same first thing it did when you pressed the button. It's going to do something different. Whatever second command you associated to that macro. And you could have very complex macros, like changing into defensive stance, putting on a sword and shield, and then having it cast spell reflect. And you could do all of that with one button, whereas that would be 3 separate inputs. 4 technically if you count the fact that changing stances as a warrior, the default controls was a context-based control, meaning you had to hold the control button or hold the alt button to activate it. So it was like alt 1 or alt 2 or alt 3 or control 1, 2, or 3 or whatever you set it to as your key bindings. Or you could assign it to a single macro which also did something else. Sorry.
Who was the hardest boss you fought against?
In what game? Nine-tailed fox. It's the only boss that the first... In Bloodborne? Probably the Thumerian descendant. Or Lawrence. Definitely Lawrence, actually. Yeah, Lawrence, 100%. Cause has nothing on Lawrence. People who call Cause the hardest boss in the game obviously don't know that double hitboxes exist. Hell, even Maria I consider harder than Cause. Lauren Darkbeast in Tier 5 Chalices when cursed is also another one that is incredibly fucking bullshit. Just because his hitboxes are nonsense. And the fact he pushes your character into the front of his hitboxes also doesn't help. Sorry, I've been forgetting to crush these, so I was gonna do it while I was waiting for a person to join, if someone ever does. Anyways. Excuse me? What a great sound. I should have killed them with a fire weapon. I don't even know why I'm getting the bonus zones anymore. I don't even think there's anything left for me to loot out of the chalices. Oh god. Body block. I don't think anyone's co-oping right now because there's that one asshole who left his character AFK with his bell on, which is the whole reason why I'm even doing chalices myself. Excuse me. Awesome. Ooh, that might actually be good. Never mind. There's probably a blood rock or something. Yep. I should have figured that the guy would have gone forward and not even bother looking for me. Oh, never mind. He just killed the enemies that I ran by because I'm an idiot. I immediately assumed the worst of him because 90% of the players are the worst. And I never seem to get good cooperators.
Brain zippers are a bitch.
Yeah, they're not too bad. They grab me every once in a while, but that's normally because I try to attack them normally and then they just super armor through me. It's more super armor is a bitch. It's a running Souls game theme. Oh, this is not the right way. We'll always be guided by the solid doors. Cool. Nice super armor attack you got there, bud. It's just like the guys in DMC5 that super armor through what you're doing. What the fuck? This is why I don't cooperate often. Like, this dude... Like, do you forget that I'm here? I wish I took fall damage so I could kill myself. Just to prove why you don't leave your host. Is there any single thing left that can kill me? I will intentionally die to it, just to prove a point. But I don't take fall damage, so I can't even kill myself. Oh yeah, now you want to come back and check? Here, come back and check for me. I'm gonna go run to my death. Because where is my cooperator? Exactly. Nerd. Oh, you want to come back here to wave to the new guy and do your fucking gesture now, don't you?
Who is the easiest boss you fought?
It's easy. It's Celestial Emissary. Sakakibara. It's just gonna be a brain sucker anyways, or some dumb shit. Yeah. No. Oh my god.
Celestial Emissary in the normal story or Celestial Emissary in the dungeons?
All Celestial Emissary. Oh my god. The one in the chalice is only ever hard because of the lasers. Sorry, I can't think and play at the same time. It's the same thing that kills people with Abritus, because they don't know how to unlock and run. But if you know how to do that, that boss is a fucking joke. I really want to use... Here's the door that leads me out of this hellhole. Excuse me, lady. Gotta always break some physics objects. This is a bonus zone because it's got a ladder. Never mind. Excuse me, where did you just come from, mister? Give me a reason to pick up bullets. I don't use them enough. Arcane just isn't worth it. No! I had my fucking torch. I only realized at the last second. Son of a bitch. That's what I meant earlier. Dumb stuff like that. I don't take fall damage, so it doesn't matter. Would you fuck off? Wow, it was stuff I didn't actually max out on yet. Heard that guy. Awesome. How many fireballs was that in a row? 7? 6? Give me back my frame rate, Potts. urns, sconces, braziers, incense burners. God, camera, please. Oh my God, I actually died to the spit. See you later.
Welcome home. Very well.
Alright, I'm sorry for such a short stream, but I'm gonna get off. Have a good one.